Hello YouTube, it's Adi again, and I have episode 4 of our print cost estimator app. So in the last video we created all of the files that we needed to display all of our printers, and then on this video we're going to do all of the files that we need to do for material. So as I said in the last video, we're creating entities, and the cool thing about it is if we forget to do this entity portion, when we do our data access object, it doesn't know what we're talking about. So as soon as we specify in room that this is a room entity, our DAO, our data access object from room, also knows that, hey, there's supposed to be a material table, and there is a field called manufacturer in that material table. So there's a lot of cool things. We haven't even put the database into the we haven't even added the table into the database on the phone yet, and we can do some real-time compiler checking. So that's pretty neat. So that's actually not even compile time, so it's even real time. So first thing we're going to do is create our material object, our model. So as I said before, we're doing an entity. We're specifying the table name as material table. We have to put that it's a data class. The primary key is the same as the printer one, and then we have just slightly different names. So we have the manufacturer, the types. So this would be like PLA, PETG, carbon fiber, or whatever. The diameter, we're actually going to probably use this a little bit later in the quotes section to filter out just filament that's compatible with a said printer, which has a diameter of, whatever. So that's the goal in the future, but we need to specify the diameter. How much does the filament cost us? What's the size of the roll, because that varies on manufacturer. So probably the most common size here in the US that when you buy a roll is a kilogram in weight, but you might find a lot of other manufacturers send out only 750 grams. So we're going to keep this as a double, because that is going to be in kilograms. So since a lot of manufacturers use like 750 grams, that would be 0.75 kilograms. So we need to have a double to take into account for our decimal places. So the density, this is going to change from manufacturer to manufacturer and material to material, but it is close to 1, but usually it's off. So like an ABS might be 1.05, PLA is 1.24, but we need to have a double in here because we're going to store our decimal to 2 places in there. All right, our nozzle temp and bed temp, they can be ints. I've never seen a slicer allow you to adjust the temperature to a fraction of a degree in Celsius. So it really doesn't matter if you put like 60.5 anyway. Just the nature of how the 3D printers work, it's going to go up and down maybe a degree anyway, no matter what you set it to, because it's constantly heating up and cool down, heating up, cooling down. Then this is going to be a calculation when we add a new one, but we're going to calculate how much filament we have, and this price per kilogram is really easy. It's just a standardized look of how much a material costs. So since a lot of manufacturers send different size spools, this is a nice way to see it. Well, how much does it cost me per kilogram? And you can compare different manufacturers from on your list. It'd be like, oh, well, this one actually costs me more, even though it's only like maybe a $16 spool. But if that $16 is a half a kilo spool, that's $32 per kilo. It's more expensive to you than a $20 per kilogram spool. So even though the total cost that you're buying is less, if you standardize it this way, that helps you visualize, cost like which ones are your more pricier filament. And we'll probably use it a little bit later in the quoting anyway, because we need something standardized to develop that quote. Okay, next we're going to go into our DAO, and these are just our query statements. So we only need 2 for now. We'll add more later. The first one is we're just going to get all of our materials from the database, and we're going to sort them by the manufacturer name in ascending order. So that's all this, get all materials. And then we need to have a way to put in a new material into the database. So that's what this insert function is. All right, so we have our database file here. We don't have to do too many changes, but one very important change is we need to make sure that we add our material class here, or else the table does not get added to the database. And if you've run the app already with the printer, you're going to have to either clear the data or just uninstall the app, or else it will crash on you. The reason why it crashes is because we didn't increment this version number. So once you go live with the app, any changes that you make to the database structure, function, whatever, you need to increase the version number and then handle that change. So let's say you split, what I'll probably do coming up is split up the, in the printer, I just have the name. We'll probably split up the manufacturer and the model number. Probably because it would be easier just visually to do that when we're adding a new printer. So if I would do that, I would want to, if it was live and I wanted to make that change, I would need to increment the version number and handle that change. All right, next thing we need to do is we're gonna pre-populate our database with some data. And I just included all of the materials that are on the spreadsheet already. So all of these items, which all of this stuff is going to be calculated when we add a new one, these 2 columns here, I'm just copying over the hard-coded values into the new filament. So each 2 lines here is we're creating a new material and then inserting it into the database. And that's why we need this insert function here. Okay, next we create our repository, and it takes an input of our data access objects. So all materials is this data access object dot get all materials, which is here, and our insert as well. It takes our insert. And our view model. So this is another coroutines based. I had described it in the last video that we're gonna be basically accessing the repository, and all of this is going to be managed on threads. That it's a simpler version of threads and a lot lower. It's a low weight thread manager is basically all we're doing here. And to access our repository and insert and display our data from our database. So our view model is supposed to survive life cycles too. So that's what we're going to then add into our list fragment. When we specify this view model, we're putting in a way for us to survive configuration changes, on creations, on destroys, whatever. We don't have to manage any of that data or data handling ourselves. The data is completely separated from the activity or fragment in this case, and the UI can be populated by a separate context. And these threads, the coroutines, are the threads that handle that. Okay, so now that we have all of our data built and ready to be managed, let's manage it. So we have our material adapter. It's just our recycler view adapter, and what we do here is, so we're gonna inflate our 2-item row. So this is all we're doing here, is we're specifying on the onCreate view holder that we're gonna inflate this layout. Then in this inner class, the view holder, we're gonna create 2 variables here, or sorry, since they're not the values. So we're going to specify the text view for the manufacturer and the text view for the size, and then we're going to, on the onBind view holder, specify what information we want to put it. So on the manufacturer text, we're going to input the manufacturer and also the type. So, and we're going to space it out here with a little space. So it'll be like Form Futura is the manufacturer, and you'll have the type. So if it's a PLA or a PETG or whatever, would be here separated by a space. And then on the material size, we're going to put the size, add another space, and then add how much of the material per spool. I mean, this is unnecessary. You can change this to whatever you want to display. That's what I've decided to go with here for display purposes. We need to find out how many items are going to display in the recycler view. So our adapter just takes how many items are in the materials list and gets the size, gets the count basically. And then we need to a way to input the data. So this function is created so that we can set our list. In here, up here, when we create our materials list, it's empty. So then what we're doing is we're replacing it with the list from our database. And then all the handling and information is done. Now all we need to do is implement it into our list fragment. So we create our adapter here and our view model, and basically we have the 3 lines for our adapter. We have to set our adapter, set our linear our layout manager, and then this is to increase some performance. If all the items on the recycler view are the same size, we can specify this has fixed size, and it takes some assumptions into place which increase performance. And then the last thing we need to do is set our view model, and then right in here is where we pass in our data from our database. So this is our observer here, like our view model all materials is getting passed into here as into our adapter. So we're setting our materials list from our database using the view model, and that's it. So when we run this, I've uninstalled it so we don't have an error when I run this. I'm just gonna install the app. So we have no quotes, we haven't built that yet. We have our printers and we have our materials, and then that's it. So as you can see, the first line is the manufacturer plus the material type. Then the second line is the actually we did the spool size. I didn't pick the filament diameter, but spool size and length. Probably should put one in here for the diameter of the spool, but in our example here, if we go into our database, they're all 1.75s in our diameter. All of our diameters are 1.75. So right now we're not really creating anything special. This is all pre-populated data, but it would be neat for the user to be able to see it. So I'll probably add a text view over here, maybe some larger text and we'll specify the diameter size there. All right, hope you liked this video. Let me know what you think. Please subscribe and have a good day.